Welcome back, everybody. I'm Bruce.
Hey, and I'm Pete. And Bruce, how you doing, man? It's good to be back. Just hanging out with you today.
It's good. I'm always a fan. Just hang out with and talk some cards and talk Commander and
Oh yeah.
just scratch his little itch I got. So I'm
I got
happy
to
to do
play
it.
a little bit last night, so it got me thinking of some cards, and I'm excited to share them today. And I know that we're slightly changing our process, so um, we're doing this really simple process now. Bruce, what are we doing? Because
Yeah,
we're in flux right now.
yeah. We're playing around with some different stuff, trying to see what works, and we're trying to keep it simple. So for the show today, and hopefully going forward, we're going to be looking at trying to put things in categories to make it easier for us to keep things straight and to highlight a variety of different cards. So we're going to be looking. Each of us have brought a creature today. Each one of us have brought an instant or a sorcery, and each one of us have brought an artifact, enchantment, or a land that we're going to highlight and talk about and sort of how it might be applicable in your next Commander game and see if it's any good. Out there, if you're listening to us and you like what we're doing and we'd love some feedback, maybe some funky names that we could put in to make the category, like the segments kind of flow and be kind of fun. But that's what we're trying to do. We're going to keep it simple and keep things on rails so everybody can understand where we're coming from and why we're picking certain cards.
So without further ado, Bruce, what creature do you have for us?
Ooh, all right. So I was okay. Full disclosure, everybody. I was digging around in some boxes of terrible cards and found a kind of a fun commander. And the commander, we'll talk about that in a second. But this card seems to play really well with it. So I've got Fallowsage. It's 3 and a blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard. And it says whenever Fallowsage becomes tapped, you may draw a card. So before I tell you where I want to put this, what is your initial reaction to this, Pete?
I'm so happy to see this card again. Oh, I'm so happy because I played this in my Sig Blue White deck for forever because it was just a way for me to reliably draw cards and get in for two because Sig would allow protection.
Mm-hmm.
I could pay white and a colorless to give it protection from a color and I could get in. Or I could like play Paradise Mantle and tap it for mana. But the idea you shared with me earlier this week, I'm super excited to see this work. So, yeah, I don't think this card is that playable in most strategies unless you can reliably tap it. But even just finding ways to tap it now is a lot easier than it used to be in the past. So, what was your idea though? This idea is pretty cool.
Right. So the obvious problem is that most things, when you tap them, you have to put them into combat to go make them go tap. And finding ways around that is kind of a fun puzzle I wanted to figure out. So I was digging and I found Occasia Dig Site Mentor, which is a Bant-colored commander from Brothers War. And so for 1 green, white, blue, you have a 4/3 legendary creature, human artificer. Creatures you control have vigilance and then tap to surveil 1. And then she has an additional ability of 2 green, green, white, white, blue, blue. So a total of 8 mana. Exile Tokasia Dig Site Mentor from your graveyard. Return any number of target artifact cards with total mana value 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. Now, I
Mhm.
looked at Tokasia, and lots of people lean into like the artifact recursion package, but I
Sure.
was looking at it from the standpoint of how do I utilize the
The
tapping
thirst ability.
creatures?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
and I was playing around with the survival mechanic from Duskborn, which has a lot of creatures that if things are tapped, then you get a bonus. Well, Fallowsage also says the same sort of thing. You want to tap it to draw that card, and I don't
Yeah.
want it to necessarily get into combat. So I was like, oh, these go pieced like together like 2 peas in a pod. So that was where I was going to put it. I think in that sort of a build, taking an obscure sort of debatably good card like Fallowsage is actually a really good place to put it because now you have a card draw engine on a permanent that you can then use to fill your hand again, which is going to
Yeah.
be exactly what you need.
The interesting thing is, like, the only other decks that were in it was because the Convoke precon that was such a terrible precon.
Oh yes, that was
They
dreadful.
they did it really dirty, but
Yeah,
they would play it in there because you're gonna
well,
tap it to play the cost for these spells. but even then it was unreliable. But this is the one of the most reliable ways to just do it, and not have to wait to figure out like when to tap. Even with vehicles, because it's only a 2/2, there are a lot of vehicles that crew for 1 or 2, but even then, like I feel like playing a vehicle when you can just play this instead to tap it to surveil and get a little bit of card advantage instead of having to play a vehicle to tap it and you have to like force it. I'd rather see it in a way like this because it's more efficient instead of having to take up slots that don't necessarily need that card for the card draw. Like vehicles, like there's a bunch of vehicles you can just play like Smuggler's Copter anyway and just do it that way.
Yeah.
And it's just a bit easier. Instead of having to play 2 cards in 2 slots, you can just play one of them. And now this actually has like a secret home, I guess.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and then if you want to go one step beyond that, if you want to play with things that untap it, there's a whole bunch of different mechanics in blue and green that allow you to untap permanents, which they allow you to use it a second time. So a great example might be Derevi Imperial Tactician, which has a really potent way to untap permanents, and you could use it again there too. There's lots of other ways to get into.
I want to just caveat as well, like. Maybe you're reinventing the wheel with it. Like maybe there's just a better effect that might allow you to draw more cards when you tap it. You know what I mean? There might be other options, but to be able to surveil and draw, that's really nice. Like to look at 2 cards for the price of 1.
It's super good. So,
right.
What did you bring? What did you bring today?
All right, this card is cool. It's from a precon as well, actually. So it's a Phantom Steed. So Phantom like a ghost steed, 3 colorless and a blue. And so it's the same cost as the card we just mentioned. Horse Illusion. It has flash. It has flash.
What a silly card type. Sorry. Keep going.
When Phantom Steed enters, exile another target creature you control until Phantom Steed leaves the battlefield. Whenever Phantom Steed attacks, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of the exiled card, except it's an illusion in addition to its other types. Sacrifice that token at the end of combat.
Ooh.
What do you think?
Ooh. I really like that. So I like that because what you're going to be able to do, you're going to obviously want to exile a high value target, probably of your own control. Like you want to control it so that you know exactly what you're going to get. And then you can use it to attack to get value. So basic example would be something like a Solemn Simulacrum, where if it comes into play, you go and get a land. Then when it gets sacrificed, you get the card, which would be a really good way of doing that. Do you exile it? No, sacrifice it. Yeah. So Solemn Simulacrum is exactly the sort of card you would like to exile with this. Now, the added perk that I like about this is the fact that you can use this aggressively on your opponent's things to exile their stuff.
No, it's only a creature you control. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I was disappointed.
I know. But yeah.
Anyway, but still, like there's lots of high value ETB triggers that you can put underneath this. That the real issue you got to be able to do is got to find a way to make Phantom Steed be able to attack consistently in order to get that value. So whether it's putting some sort of artifact on it that gives it unblockability, or you're giving it protection, or you're using Rogue's Passage, or all the other ways to make use of it to be able to attack reliably, and it deals chunks in 4s. Like that's not small, and it's going to lay a beating on people pretty quick if you get any time to sort of run away with this thing. So I think this is really neat. I think it's also fascinating. So we just saw the same mana value on Fallowsage, which is like, let's be real, it's from a bygone era of Magic design.
Power creep.
Power creep is a thing. Like the amount of text that Pete read on Phantom Steed, like
it was
with flash and like a whole brick of text. And I think it's
most
amazing.
People stop thinking after they see the word flash. They're like, oh, flash. Okay.
Yeah, whatever. And I'm like, oh, this is just really good because it can ambush and you can surprise them on end step and then attack with it on somebody with an open board.
So here's my reasoning for this card. There's 3 reasons. Okay, the first, They go to target one of your creatures, and you flash it in response and protect it immediately. All right, so it's like a pseudo protection spell.
Yep. Yeah,
My
I've seen it.
second one is based on my inspiration from my friend last night. He plays a Saheeli the Sun's Brilliance deck that he just built, and it was really fun to watch go pop off. And Saheeli the Sun's Brilliance is blue and a red, human artificer, blue red tap it. Create a token that's a copy of another target creature artifact you control, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types, gains haste, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So, excuse me, the Phantom Steed. You can keep copying the Phantom Steed, and you can keep ETBing things with her as well. So you can like flicker a creature, basically it dies, bring it back, right? Because it left the battlefield. Then the final thing is Min. So Min, Wily Illusionist, is 1 and 2 blue pips, Gnome Wizard. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue illusion creature token. With this creature, it gets +1/+0 for each other illusion you control. Whenever an illusion you control dies, you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to that creature's power from your hand onto the battlefield. The Phantom Steed makes illusion copies as well. So the creature is like a solemn illusion token, right? Or I don't know, let's another value creature.
Whatever.
It doesn't really matter. But basically, the illusions also work obviously with Min because when they die, they get sacrificed and get exiled. A lot of these token cloning effects are exile them at the end of combat or exile them at the end of turn. So you get an immediate value, even if you only get to use it once. If you're able to clone it, of course, it just creates this ridiculously silly loop of things. Goodness. But then also, if they die and get sacrificed at the end of combat, you might get somebody good with some sort of effect where when a creature dies, it deals damage when it leaves the battlefield. Or like you could copy like a Phyrexian Dreadnought, and you could go for 12. You know what I mean? Because the token's tapped in attacking as well, so it gets around some of the other like weird like attack trigger effects too. So it's just a very odd card in blue as well. It should be a red card. This card should be a red card, but it's a color shifted blue card. Honestly, it is. You know what I mean?
I agree. Like it does have a lot of similarities with a red effect. Blue might have this effect, but it wouldn't sacrifice it, and it'll be a little more restrictive. But anyway, this is cool, and like that's that next step of like, how do you put this card into practice that is actually really neat? Because I hadn't even thought about the protection spell angle. I'm like, that alone is worth enough. Like, okay, that's cool. Because that puts it in like, there's lots of cards that have that sort of effect, and now you get it in blue as a way to protect your thing. But on top of that the cloning the Phantom Steed to get more things is kind of fun and very, very silly, and I think is just the sort of degeneracy that people are like, and watch me do the thing now.
This is my deal with it because I have a lot of like spirit support, but it's also a lot of flicker support because like good decks usually have layers to them, right? In general, across the board. So there's some way that I was thinking of using the Steed as a way to like make it like pseudo flicker. You know what I mean? Because I'm gonna be making like copies of it in some way that I can, or flickering it. So I'll bring the creature back, bring it back on someone's turn as a blocker, and then go to attack on my turn. And then if they try to kill it, I'll like flicker it in response so it doesn't die. Kind of like my buddy when he uses like Thalia. When he does that a lot, he'll attack with Thalia and flicker something and bring it back. And I really like that as like a really not completely oppressive way to get value, where like a lot of these decks divulge into very oppressive, like the most oppressive thing that I can think of is you use this to protect your like Archon of Cruelty or something. It doesn't get the attack trigger per se, but it's still 6 damage and it's still doing so stuff.
Much. It is so much
value. Anyway, or like you're flickering like a card that just like poses somebody, like you're playing like Rexage and you're just blowing everything up, or Acidic Slime, right? That like a weird Simic stacks deck, of course, because everything is Simic. Everything is really Simic, but
everything's Simic, yeah.
But so that's my thinking about this is like, Just
I
it has
like it.
such utility as a card. And then the next card though, I mean, I'm excited for you to give me because I actually used this card in practice once or twice.
Well, yeah, I've been sort of fooling around with this sort of mechanic because I've been kind of brewing a Rakdos list. I haven't set. I have brewed most every other color combination, but the one I found the most challenging for me to brew, Rakdos. I've found that I've tried a bunch of different configurations. I've tried different Rakdos leader commanders from Judith to Jury to Mishra and the Dragon Engine to
Yeah.
lots of different things, and I found I haven't had success with any of them. I've never been satisfied. But this card might be something that gets me going in this direction, right? So the card is Cauldron Dance. So it is an instant, and it is 4 black and red, and it says cast Cauldron only during combat. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature gains haste. Return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. You may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That creature gains haste. Its controller sacrifices it at the beginning of the next end step. So there's an awful lot going on there, Pete. So if you've had experience playing this, like, tell me how you've seen it used, because I'm as someone who's looking to adopt it. Like, I want to hear the testimonial here. Is this something that I want to play, or should I be playing some sort of other effect that's cheaper?
I think for a reanimator spell, it can be very potent. So I used it. I had this old list, and it was Kodama of the 6 mana one. It like it says whenever a permanent enters the battlefield, you get to cheat out a permanent. That's with lesser cost.
Kodama of the East Tree.
Of the East Tree. So Kodama the East Tree has reach. Whenever another permanent you control enters, if it wasn't put onto the battlefield with this ability, you may put a permanent card with equal or lesser mana value from your hand onto the battlefield. And I was running that as a partner with Vile Smasher the Fierce. And Vile Smasher the Fierce says whenever you cast your first spell each turn, it randomly rolls, and then some opponent takes damage equal to the amount of the mana you spent for that spell. So spell costs 6 mana, they'll randomly take 6 damage. So I was using Cauldron Dance to cheat out really expensive permanents, either in my hand or in the graveyard that I had discarded earlier, in a sense, just so I could cheat them out without it's like a sneak attack for me. I was using my secret sauce for that deck was a sneak attack type effects where you cheat something out and it gets sacrificed at the end of the turn, and then you find a way later to recur them somehow. So I was using Charnel Horde Worm to get cards back. Charnel Horde Worm is
I don't know that
Charnel
one.
Horde Worm is 4 colorless, red, green, and black, and it's a 7 mana 6/6 or whatever. And it says whenever it deals damage to a permanent, you get to return a card from your graveyard to your hand. So I was looping that kind of as well.
Okay.
So that was how I used Cauldron Dance as well. I would cheat out something like that, and I would go and recur things after they got sacrificed. And then the other one was Mishra and the Dragon Engine, which you mentioned earlier. The challenge is trying to meld the two things into this big beater. Yeah. So I would have I'd usually have the Dragon Engine in my hand, and usually somebody would kill Mishra immediately because Mishra is a kind of a kill on sight card, especially if you recur. Yeah. If you have a ton of things attacking, everybody takes a ton of damage. So it's a very aggressive card. So I usually kill it, I'd leave it in the graveyard, I'd play Cauldron Dance, they both gain haste, and they both meld together when they attack together. So I was able to do that, and it kind of gets around the sacrifice because it's one big entity.
Yeah. The game sees it as being a different game piece.
It's a new game piece, so it got around the Cauldron Dance, and it was kind of neat. So I mean, I don't know how you would use it, and I don't know what commander you might be using, but I know the Rakdos, Lord of the Pits, the Rakdos that reduces the cost of spells, the amount of life that you lost, might be really beneficial too.
But so I'm looking at the one I've been most recently experimenting with is Alessia, who laughs at fate, smiles at fate. Foundations, and I think she's pretty cool in her own right. And I'm not sure if this sort of reanimation effect, because a lot of the things that Alessia wants are smaller and cheaper
Yeah.
creatures instead of playing the big chonkers. So this is a cool effect, and I'm like, this is pretty sweet, and I can see where it would go if I was playing like the Rakdos Eldrazi monsters or like the giant
Mhm.
Rakdos demons and stuff like that. Like that leans into there because you're gonna get like your Balrog out, or you're gonna get your rune demon or whatever. And I think Alessia tends to be a little lower to the ground, meaning that this a 6 mana
It's
sorcery
trying to go
may not,
faster. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
it's trying
it
to go
may not
faster.
be quite the right piece, but definitely has got my attention. I'm like, this is like there's play here where people can do some really powerful things, and it doesn't look like much of anything because it came in a precon years ago and hasn't seen a lot of other reprints. And so people probably undoubtedly forgot about it. And I think people are missing out on an opportunity here. If you're building Rakdos decks, then this is something that you need to at least entertain if it's
Yeah.
not, key front and center in your strategy.
It's pretty expensive. Like it is 6 mana, right? So you have to invest a decent amount of resource into it. But
Yeah.
I think getting two value ETBs or two
Yeah.
value of anything like attack triggers, even if you cheat out like 2 3 mana creatures, you still basically broke even with regards to how
Yeah.
much you spent. And if Alessia like if maybe you're cheating out at like a cheap creature and maybe you're cheating out an expensive creature, um, maybe the creature has like an additional casting cost and you want to get around like that. And
Mhm.
maybe that's just the way to get the creature out faster. Because if you're being super aggressive, maybe that's the way to do it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it is expensive, so I wouldn't like this is an auto include. No, no, like this is a niche kind of.
Right.
Your deck needs to function in a way that it's being aggressive. Where
Mhm.
this isn't like in some Rakdos decks are more control based. I don't think this spell really fits in like any of the other signpost Rakdos commanders we've seen in the last few years. Even like Greven can't use this. You
No,
know,
exactly.
even
But it's cool.
Greven Predator Captain can't use it, but
Yeah.
it is an interesting card. Mhm.
Super cool. I have to say, this is a
Yeah,
fun card, and I would like to find a spot for it. Maybe some sort of Jund pile, or if you got like
yeah,
Zayatora or
because
something. But
you got a lot of like Zayatora actually might love this just because you can
yeah,
choose to sacrifice, and then you get to keep punching people with the damage. But yeah, just let me know and let me know what you do with it. I'm curious.
yeah, for
So
sure. I'm gonna give it a try. See what it looks like.
all right,
What
the
have
next
you
card.
brought tonight?
So this is a sorcery, Stronghold Discipline, 2 colorless and 2 black pips. Each
Ooh.
player loses 1 life for each creature they control. So what do you
Ooh.
think?
Well, this effect has like killed me more times than I care to admit to. So this text also appears on Rakdos Charm, and Rakdos Charm has housed me a bunch. So if I think this sort of card is the sort of card that you put in there as tech in a meta where people play a lot of token decks. So I wouldn't be playing this if I'm walking into a meta where I'm unknown what people are going to be doing. Because of the fact that if you're playing somebody who's playing playing a go tall deck. By that I mean they're playing big creatures that are maybe Voltroned up with lots of equipment, or you're playing big Eldrazi monsters. This might only get them for a damage or two, in which case you're not getting a lot of bang for your buck when you cast a 4 mana spell. However, if you have a go wide strategy, tokens, morph creatures, or anything that is going to flood the board with lots of bodies, you're going to find that this is going to just house somebody and give you a win. So, as a redundant effect for a Rakdos Charm, I'm on board, but I would be very circumspect about where I'm playing this and who I'm playing it against, because if I'm walking into a deck where like a game where no one's playing a go wide strategy, this is sort of a dead card in your deck, and you top deck this on turn 5 or 6, you go, ooh, that feels bad. But if you got somebody who's a green white tokens deck, you go, all right, my friend, it's time to go, time to die. So I like the card and would love the redundant effect to Rakdos Charm, and can see it certainly killing me. I am that guy who's prone to go wide. And so I go, I'm scared of that card right there. But for me building the deck, I would be a little more reticent to slot it in there and give up a card slot to it.
So a commander that I'm thinking about that would actually really love this card. It's a second commander from one of the Duskmourn commander precons. All right. Rendmaw, Creaking Nest, 3 colorless, black and a green Scarecrow, Menace and Reach. When it enters and whenever you play a card with 2 or more card types, each player creates a tapped 2/2 Blackbird creature token with flying. The tokens are goaded for the rest of the game. And I'm thinking about using this as like, and you're sacking your tokens or you're doing something to give people creatures and forcibly giving them creatures, and then you play this as a way to just kill everybody but you. And that's what I was thinking about. Because like effects like Varchild, where you're giving everybody a bunch of crap, and then you're like, and like you might kill yourself because at the end goading things doesn't really work anymore.
Yeah, eventually it backfires.
But using this as like a weird way to be like, all right, you die. like
I think
it might work once out of like the 5 times or 10 times you play this really bad card, but it's like, I mean, it's funny.
Well, this falls in the same category as like cards like Yurlok. So Yurlok, the Jund commander that cares about mana burn. This is like the same sort of idea where it's like I'm gonna maybe give you more mana or give you more resources to play the game with, but there's when the other shoe drops, I'm gonna burn you out because you're gonna end up having to take mana burn or you're gonna have too many bodies, and I'm gonna like zap you with this. And like I think that's an awesome way to use this card. I think that's super fun. I like the forcibly giving your opponents creatures, particularly like creatures of dubious quality. So that's why the Varchild,
like Hunted Horror. Like Hunted Horror is a big example of one that I see play a lot because it is a horror and people play horror tribal and all that stuff. But that would be cool, right? Like it's like you gift people these creatures that really kind of bite them later. Even like a Beast Within, not that you're going to play Beast Within in every single deck, but most people play Beast Within without a second thought.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I think that is super fun. I'm a big fan. I think on top of it, I also imagine the scenario. You're playing you're playing and it's Friday night at your FNM and you get the table with this and everyone's just going to howl with laughter. Like, oh my goodness, he did it. He got us with it.
There's some other cards out there where it's like target player creates X1/1s, and if they do it, you do it. Like there's parlay, but that's not forced. That's not exactly forced.
Yeah.
But there's like a card, I remember it says like target player makes half, like a Gonjo's Last Uprising. It's like, it's the Boros X spell from Kamigawa, and it's like you make X 2/2s and they make X -1 2/2s or something like that. And I find like that would be really funny. To like gift people things, and then like I'm imagining a Marchesa deck, like Marchesa deck, where you're giving people tokens.
Oh yes.
And then you're playing this as like everybody's tokens are getting, you're giving everyone a ton of tokens, and then you kill them all somehow. I don't know. Maybe it needs to be 5 colors. Who knows?
Maybe, but I think in that scenario, I think this card is fun and cool. Like I said, like I think again,
it's so streamlined though. It's so linear, right?
You need to be in that list and in that list only, because I think if you go put this in a broader strategy, you're likely to find yourself wishing you would put something else, like even like just a derpy bear, because you want some sort of body on the field that's going to do the thing. Because this it doesn't replace itself. It doesn't say draw a card. It doesn't. It doesn't impact the board in any meaningful fashion.
It just says each player loses life.
Yeah. So I mean, sometimes it's going to be player removal, and that's what you need. But there could be times when it just falls a little flat on its face. So someone building with this card in mind would have to be looking to make sure you're going to be able to set it up to succeed by giving your opponents lots of stuff. I like that. That's fun. That is fun.
Thanks. All right, and then I'll bring us home, and then I guess you'll do the last laugh, I guess we could say, for today. So
what have we got here?
So I got a card from Commander 2011. All right, so a ways out, but Crescendo of War. All right, 3 colorless and a white enchantment. The theme today is 4 drops, I guess. At the beginning of each upkeep, put a strife counter on Crescendo of War. Attacking creatures get +1/+0 for each strife counter on Crescendo of War. Blocking creatures you control get +1/+0 for each strife counter on Crescendo of War. So, what do you think?
This is wow. I have again never ever seen this card. I am of the opinion I don't love it. I don't love it because yes, potentially you hit like a freight train, right? If let's imagine this, you resolve this and you put a couple of strife counters on it, either because you can proliferate or you can do something where you're going to have a bunch of counters on it. You're going to be getting the power, but you don't have any evasion. You don't have trample. Your creatures may not even have first strike. You're going to have to set that up through an additional card package. And in and of itself, this card is underwhelming in that capacity. Now, in Jetmir Nexus of Revels, this card plays fantastic. If you have something that grants all your creatures first strike or gives them all trample or menace, like this plays great. But you have to now go an extra step beyond. You could have an enchantment effect in the first, like Dictate of Heliod, which gives all your creatures +2/+2, and in that immediacy is probably more impactful than a card that 3 turns from now is a more impactful card. But as we all know, the way of Commander, 3 turns on a Commander table is an eternity. That is so much time. So anyway, I like the card because I think it's a super unique effect. And strife counters, I've never seen those before written on a card. But I just am afraid that it's going to be not going to give you enough on the, particularly on the back end when you're trying to defend yourself from, like, if you're on the full on a press, like pressing attack, like you're good. But like if you're not, you're going to be hard pressed to survive along with this sort of thing in play.
So I'm thinking when I look at this card, it gives every attacking creature +1/+0, not just your own stuff. So you could,
right.
You could literally the token player. You could like make a deal with them and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna buff all your team like for 3 turns.
I guess, yeah,
Can you eliminate this other guy who's my problem right now?" And on the flip side, the new blocking rules make this card I think even better than what it used to be, because of the fact that like you give all your stuff menace, for example, or you give stuff like other very relevant keywords like trample, and now they have to do more math, which I know math is hard, but but
That's for blockers anyway, though, right? If you're attacking, who cares?
But now you as the blocking player have to do math because you also. I was thinking like as well like a lot of those like little 1/1 flyers flying around, like fairies and stuff. You could put this in here easily in like an Alayla list, and then all your stuff is like a 5/1, and it's like I don't really want to go into this, you know what I mean? Because 4 turns my 1/1 became a 5/1 because this card stuck for a whole turn cycle because it's literally every single upkeep. I think it's cool. Or like finally my last idea would be like a politicking option where you give extra upkeeps to yourself and you make a million strife counters on this thing.
Ooh, I like that. That's the strategy I like.
Like Paradox Haze, or which gives an additional upkeep, or you're even. I mean, I guess Attrax is like the easy way out where you proliferate at your end step. But at the same time, mono white with this, I feel mono white soldiers even like a bunch of 3/2s is a lot of damage.
No, you're not wrong. Like it's gonna it ends games, and like we've seen it before. I was thinking Jetmir. I think this was Jetmir.
Yeah, no, I heard you, and I was just like thinking about it, but I think with Jetmir, because he does it himself, it's almost like it's not necessary. That's the only thing. It's like there are probably faster ways to buff your entire team quicker, but I think this card is cool in terms of like the politicking side of the game. Because it's like every upkeep this sticks around. Like not only do I get to buff your stuff if you like attacking, like if your deck's super aggressive, but my stuff now is also stronger. Yeah.
Also, you and I are a big advocate of everybody gets dead. And because games got to end. So this is going to be a way the games are going to end in a hurry with this one because everything's going to be hitting like a freight train real quick.
Literally everything.
I think the card is fun, and I think I want to go. I've got to my Maha deck, which is a green-white token deck, would love something like this because, if I don't pull the Crater Hoof in that list, then I have a really hard time winning.
Yeah.
But with this, now I'd have a way like, no, I am coming, and there's going to be a ton of damage. Get ready. So
This is also unexpected. Like Crater Hoof is like a really obvious win condition.
it's boring.
This is a little bit slighter because it's like there are many turns. Like if you play this turn 4, even if there's no creatures on the battlefield, it still upticks every turn, every upkeep. It's not like it stops when there's no creatures out. So you could hypothetically like easily make this go, and then when everyone's getting to the point where they feel comfortable attacking, because how many times do we play players where they have 20 creatures out and they don't do anything? They just sit there. They're like, I gotta pass. It's like what?
All the time.
Like, I don't have a reliable like people are kind of stuck, right? Like yesterday we were playing and one guy had a pretty big board state, the other guy had a pretty big board state. I didn't, but they were both kind of stuck because they couldn't get through to each other. One guy had a bunch of planeswalkers, the other guy had a bunch of 3/3s, and it was just difficult to figure it out. And the last one I was thinking of was turning this into a creature with the Zur, the 3-mana Zur that's now crushing standard. Zur Eternal Schemer, you can like turn this into a creature and then it gets hexproof and it gets death touch and lifelink and all that. So
that's fun too.
That would be kind of neat, right? It'll be like a 4/4 that's beating you, but it's actually 6/4 or 10/4,
Yeah, because it's got counters on it. Counters on it. And you're like, now we're in big doo-doo. Now, question about the strafe counters. Would this interact well with the Ozolith in any way, or is that only +1/+1 counters? I'm not sure.
The Ozolith moves any counters.
Would this be useful? Does it help to put strafe counters on something else? I don't know. Is there anything else that involves
the only way you could like you could nesting grounds, because it says creatures for the Ozolith, so like this is, I mean, if you played that with it, you turned it into a creature, that would be kind of interesting. But for strife counters, that's the entirety of Magic. That's the only card that has strife counters.
That is cool. All right, that's a fun card. I like that one. All right. Yeah. My last contribution today is Gossip's Talent. So Gossip's Talent, the talents from Bloomburrow have been a revelation, I think, to take an enchantment, and then we've seen this sort of card mechanic before, but for whatever reason, these seem to hit differently. So Gossip's Talent, 1 in a blue enchantment, it's a class. Level 1, whenever a creature you control enters, you surveil 1. And then you can spend 1 in a blue to make it to level 2. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature with power 3 or less can't be blocked this turn. Okay. 3 in a blue, level 3. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may exile it, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Pete, talk to me about Gossip's Talent. What are your thoughts?
All right. I like that it scales itself up. And what I mean by that is you start out with the first effect, which is super relevant to move your deck, especially in a control deck, because this feels like it just slots in a ton of different control decks. The fact that it's any creature that enters is great, not just non-token. I feel like they could have nerfed the first ability and it still would have been good.
Yeah, if they gate kept it, it would be different. But like this is like any creature that does like point final.
And then like the attacking creature, you basically get to surveil twice every single turn once you get to level 3, and that's excellent. That's like you're looking at 3 cards a turn. I mean that's a pretty heavy amount of card advantage.
Yeah,
I think I need to pick one up. I need to pick one up for this Flicker deck I've been sitting on forever.
So, it's great. So
it's great.
Like, again, I've been messing around with Tokasia, and Tokasia wants to surveil. So now I just play doofuses and I surveil for free. Thank you, I love it. And then the fact that I can have it eventually get to the point where things are unblockable and I'm going to get more value off ETBs is kind of exactly where I want to be. And so I think this card is actually really, really excellent. People aren't talking about it because so many of the other talents have taken the world by storm. So caretakers and innkeepers and a bandit's talent have sort of got and think there's a blue one, Storm Chaser's talent. These have all caught everyone's attention because they're really, really powerful. But this one's like an uncommon. People aren't really talking about it, so it's a little understated. And I think people are sort of sleeping on it, and they're going to discover that it's very versatile. Because what deck that you know, Pete, doesn't have creatures with power 3 or less? Like, it's all the time.
There's a ton, and then there's sometimes like it's hard for you to get through, or like this pairs perfectly with Brago. Like it's just a perfect.
Yes, it does.
Just
It's
a perfect
Brago's best friend.
pair, and a wild pair. I keep quoting cards like in practice now. I'm walking around just like, oh, the last laugh.
Nerd.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Awful. Oh, terrible.
But yeah, pointing out that Brago plays really well with this is actually kind of insane because Brago and this are like two peas in the pod, and this is ridiculous. So I think this card people are sleeping on. Now, it's not unplayed in Commander. I was just looking at it just the other day. It's in 10,000 decks. Like, considering it's been in print for not even 8 months, 10,000 decks is a lot of decks. But I think it's probably still underplayed at 10,000 decks and should probably be a little bit more. So, that's how I feel about it. I'm going to play it out here and see how it works in my Tokaja list. But I'm probably going to go and get a couple of extra copies and slide them in a few other places because I think the card is actually kind of sleepy good.
The only downside that I can think of right now is just it only triggers for one creature, so it's not like you can just make like a bunch of creatures unblockable. That's the only like I guess downside of it. And if you can't push enough damage, it might be a challenge to like continue to get the value because once people start realizing that you're getting a ton of value off of this card, they're gonna just kill you quickly.
Oh yeah. So, the nice piece with that though is that you can it doesn't necessarily have to stay at 2 power or 3 power. Like you can do something after you targeted it to up its power, whether it's you can target with a spell or an effect or something else. But it doesn't have to stay at under 3 power or less. So anyway, super cool card. I think the card is again underplayed, but you're right. It's not a blanket. All your things that are little get through. It's one thing, and then one thing can get targeted and destroyed by your opponents, and to negate the effect. So it's not foolproof, but I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think like another option like Delny double triggers like Delny goes insane because every power 2 creature that enters, you get 2 surveils instead of 1. You get to do a bunch of things with it. So, I'm thinking just blue-white control. You could also do black-blue. You could do green-blue, actually, if you wanted to potentially do some value with that. I don't know. Yeah, you can just do 3-color, 4-color nonsense, too.
Just be greedy and play big.
Or you could be dumb like I'm thinking, and you can make it a creature again and just make it unblockable.
Here, blink itself. Is that useful? I don't know. That's probably a lot of bananas. No, probably not. But you could do it.
Yeah. So I'm glad, I'm glad that the flexibility is there still for what you can do with it as an uncommon. Very budget friendly. All these cards are very budget friendly. So, yeah. And with that, thanks for listening. And Bruce, take care. We'll see you soon.
Catch you soon, my man. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.